Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a twice-weekly podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from channel strategies to tariffs, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers, or what we call R-commerce. Now here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining us on the Page One Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Peters. This is the podcast where I bring you the best and brightest leaders to share consumer product sales and marketing strategies that will help you grow your business. I'm the CEO and founder of Newer Appliances, where I cut my teeth selling products online and now have started a retail brand where I hope to help other brands succeed in product launches, influencer marketing, and B2B online sales strategy. And right now I'm offering a free evaluation of your online sales strategy. If you're interested, find me on LinkedIn or email me at luke@retailband.com. We can talk about opportunities with influencer marketing, or just look at, your digital strategy, how you're doing with Amazon, hd.com, Lowe's.com, Wayfair.com, and, hopefully provide a lot of value for you. So again, find me on LinkedIn or email at luke@retailband.com. So in this episode, you are going to learn from Stacey Reid, VP of Sales with Global Amici, on what it takes to succeed as a woman in a male-dominated category of mass retail sales. We'll talk about how low overhead can be a big advantage, how to leverage relationships with rep groups and retailers, and, or as stated, how to navigate a male-dominated industry as a woman. Stacey, thanks for joining me today on the Page One Podcast.
Thanks, Luke. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And as I just previously mentioned, I was just talking to Stacey before the podcast started here, that I have two daughters. So looking forward to learning more. One just turned 18 and one is 21. She just graduated and is a really good public speaker. So looking forward to this episode and a little bit more introduction on Stacey. She's a third generation salesperson from Cleveland, Ohio. That grew up in consumer products for the last 28 years. She's worked with big brands from Fortune 500 companies to entrepreneurial startups in the housewares and specialty food businesses. She was director of national accounts at Igloo Products Corp. Stacey holds a BA in international affairs from the University of Cincinnati. And Stacey, before this podcast, I looked online. So I was looking at Global Amici's website, and it looks like you guys sell beautiful glassware, but can you share more about what the company does? What else do you guys sell, and who do you sell to?
Sure. Global Amici was founded back in 1982 and specializes in home decor. Our core competency in this decade is glass and metal food storage. So if you think about the flour, coffee, tea canisters that you have on your kitchen countertop, that's what we do. A few years ago, we made the jump from home decor into pet because it was very easy to take those flour, coffee, tea canisters, change the graphics, change the knob to a bone or a paw, and blammo, we're in the pet accessory business. So we've got about 120 SKUs on the pet side and about 450 SKUs on the home decor side, the Amici home side. And it is SKU intensive, but it's a really fun industry, our channel of distribution to be in. It is part of the housewares industry, but coming from gourmet cookware, this is fun and fashionable and got some flair to it. So a little bit more pizzazz than a fry pan.
Perfect. Well, that gives us a good picture of it. So about 570 SKUs total. And so why don't we talk a little bit more about the company here? How about the number of employees? And are you guys warehousing and distributing yourselves? Or are you using 3PLs? And if so, how does that footprint look on the warehouse side?
Yeah, sure. We previously had our warehouse located at our headquarters in San Diego, California. And 2 years ago, we made the decision purely for cost effectiveness and really, I guess, just an overall better fulfillment process. We partnered with a 3PL up in Reno, Nevada, and it has been a total game changer for us. I highly recommend, small, mid-sized companies to do 3PLs. I forgot totally what your other question was.
Total number of employees, I guess.
Oh, yeah. So we've got about 10 people in the office, and then we've got a dozen or so independent rep groups out in the field. Remy, who is the president, along with his brother, Tanner, the Sloan brothers, I call them, Tanner's the CEO. and I all manage the sales and marketing of it. And we've got graphic designers, we've got accounts payable, customer service, one person dedicated for the .com business and the other for brick and mortar. So it's a nice, and we do have a person on the ground in China as well. So it's a great sized business. Our low overhead allows for immediate turnaround, and we're able to go from ideation to shelf or DC in about 110, 120 days. So we can really turn product around quickly. Plus, we also are able to offer great competitive cost, whether it be private label or branded product. We really have become a destination for retailers.
It's super helpful, and we'll dive more into that later. And, something I picked up on was you said that the 3PL in Reno has been a game changer. Is there a specific reason why? Is it just because it kind of takes a lot of the logistics out of the company so you can focus on sales and marketing, or is there, something else to it?
Absolutely. It has to do with that focus and really comes back down to, can you find good quality, reliable help? And, in this day and age, it's just been harder and harder to find people who want to work, will show up to work. And in warehouse jobs, it's been challenging, whether you need forklift drivers, pick and packers. So absolutely, that distraction really took our eye off of, our focus of getting product developed and out in the marketplace. So it's just been a huge relief for us.
And you guys sell into a ton of, most of the big names that, that the listeners might recognize. I know you had a big laundry list of companies that you're working with, but what would be your best retailer growth channel right now? Is there somebody that's really standing out or growing, for your brand?
Well, I'll tell you. So I've been in the retail industry for almost 30 years, and I've got to stop saying that because I date myself with
funny.
it. But where I grew up in the age of specialty stores and the big power of department stores, and I've literally seen the evolution, go 180 degrees, where it's really the off-price / discount channels that are the healthiest and that they're thriving. So I've always been a big fan of the off-price discount channel, and I'm talking like Tuesday Mornings, Burlington's, TJ Maxx's, and they're a pleasure to do business with. And in this day and age, they are the wealthiest. They pay their bills. There's no markdown. The ease of transaction of doing business is nothing. Whereas, I've got one retailer that requires upwards of 19% in allowances, and it's just ridiculous. So I really, really appreciate the clean net business of that channel, and I will tell you that the TJX companies, TJX, Marshalls, Home Goods, Home Sense, are just phenomenal to work with. Top notch buyers. They've got great eyes. They're always on trend, and they currently are our largest customer. We've broken into a new channel, grocery, with Fred Meyer, Kroger, and Publix, Winn-Dixie, and Albertsons in just the last year. And that's a great and growing channel for us personally, but I also see them as healthy retailers in the marketplace. And it's sad to say that Bed Bath & Beyond, a powerhouse specialty retailer in the housewares, home decor business, has just floundered and just has been flopping like a fish on a dock for the last 3 years. So it's been very painful to watch, a retailer like that suffer. But I think that in this day and age, the shopper is gravitating towards that off price as well as the .com. That's where I've seen the money shift hands there. I just road tripped up to Michigan last week, and in my 600-mile round trip, I noticed that there were only about 3 Walmart trucks that I passed. I didn't see a single Target truck, handful of Meijer trucks, because of course we're right there in their backyard. But I did see a whole bunch of Amazon Prime trucks. And back in my early days when I would travel Ohio and the surrounding states for my job, you would see Target, Walmart, Walmart. And to just notice the shift in retail from the personal side, where do I shop? Where do my friends shop? To the logistics side, where the reflection out on the roadway is really .com has taken a lot of that market share away from brick and mortars.
Yeah, and thanks for all the candid comments there. I mean, that's great. And just to summarize, because I have a question about Amazon, but just to summarize, so Friday morning, Burlington, TJX, and just your comment on clean net business, no huge allowance, which allowances, or it seems sometimes, for me, because I don't know the in-store side as well, and our the newer brand is started on the more of the .com and the our commerce and e-retailer side. So there is a lot of allowances, with marketing and all these other things. But that was definitely an interesting call out. And I just love the candid voice there about those retailers and your thoughts on that. So speaking of Amazon, talk about the two different channels briefly with Global Amici. You guys, it sounds like, are mostly in store. But how about your digital business? Is that a growing business? And about how much percentage wise of total sales is that business?
It's probably, if you add in, so we do business with Target.com, Wayfair, Amazon, Walmart.com. There's like Zulily, there's Fair, there's a few handful of other .coms, but we limit it to about 8-10 .com retailers. I think the biggest hurdle is preventing third-party selling because of the price wars that happen between them. So it's a challenge, and we have a dedicated e-commerce salesperson who does nothing but manage those .com businesses. We have the ability to drop ship fulfill, so that's been a great angle for improving our businesses online, and it makes it seamless for the retailer. Amazon is our largest retailer, but I'll say that Target Plus or Target Marketplace, whichever the new moniker is, has come on strong. And I don't think it will ever gain or catch up to Amazon, but it is definitely a solid second place .com retailer for us. And just working with Ascenda allows for us to put more products up. The more products you have up there, the better business that you're going to have. But Amazon, day in and day out, impresses me as a retailer. And then we used to joke that they're really a logistics company who dabbles in consumers' products. But they really are the bar, the gold standard when it comes to .com. And I say the same thing for Walmart brick and mortar stores. They really are the gold standard as a retailer. People have sometimes a negative view of Walmart, but they really are a very impressive retailer. And again, I've been privileged to work with them for the last 25 years and watch them grow into the world's largest retailer, just as I have watched Amazon, grow as well. So .com is a very important part of our business. I think being owned by two millennials makes our part of our corporate mantra that .com online business is here to stay. This is where we shop, and we're going to support it, 110%.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for that recap. And it might be the first time that we've had, as a number 2 on digital, Target being a number 2. So that's great feedback and probably, aligns well with your product category. So cool to hear that. And funny, Amazon, a logistics company, or, an accounting and chargeback company or compliance company. There's a few jokes that you could put in there. Yeah. Cool. So anyways, thanks for that, and appreciate the numbers and kind of talking about the low overhead and how you guys are efficient at Global Amici. But so let's dig into this week's theme, how female sales leaders can navigate a male-dominated category. So again, just as I mentioned, I have 2 daughters, and maybe it could help me, ignorant guy here, describe maybe more specifically why it's a challenge to be a female sales leader in a male-dominated category.
Well, I think it's, we don't want to admit that sexism is in the workplace, but it really is. And, I've found my mother is a professional. She's an attorney at one of the national banks. And so I've kind of grown up with professional people. And I've looked at my dad and I've looked at my mom, and basically my mom has had to work twice as hard to be as successful as my father. And I'd have to say that's still true today. Being in this male-dominated industry of housewares for the majority of my career, has it gotten better? Yes, I'll say that it has gotten better. I think a lot more women have entered into the industry, which helps. But at the end of the day, we're still earning less, and we still have to work extra hard or that much harder to be successful. So should I recommend don't come into this industry, don't go into sales? Absolutely not. Just be smart about it and know what challenges you're going to be facing, and just have some realistic expectations.
Yeah. And what might be something specific that you've had to change to be more successful along the way?
Well, I've got very strong characteristics that would be labeled as, male. And when you're labeled as aggressive as a male, you're, looked at as, oh, that's great, that's dynamite. But when you're labeled aggressive as a woman, there could be some backlash to it. Oh, she's just a bitch, or, she's going to, she's mean, she's evil, And so I've learned to not quite soften my approach, but change that aggressive moniker to assertive, and try and have a positive spin on things. But at the end of the day, I'll still, if I'm fighting for something that's right, or I could still get into a pickle because what comes out of my mouth or how I approach a subject is looked at through the eyes, or there's a lens there that, women shouldn't be acting like that. Women shouldn't be saying something like that. So I think that would help me in being able to adjust myself to my audience is I grew up attending acting classes at a local community theater, Lakewood Theater. I'll give them a shout out there. And so I'm able to somewhat manipulate myself to appease who's in front of me. And that works really well when, as a salesperson, when working with a variety of personalities of buyers on the other side of the desk. But I also found that it helps with inner office workings, whether you're doing cross-departmental teams or you're speaking with, your superiors, that I've been able to kind of shift myself into what they want to see, with, at the end of the day, having my end goal in mind. So, it's a little bit of a tap dance, and it sucks that we have to work a little bit harder and kind of jerry-rig the system in order to be successful. But I can say that, I've been successful for the last 25 years and am, I'm happy where I am. And I really have no regrets in what I've done and accomplished. So it's been a very satisfying career. And I would highly recommend anybody getting in here, just remember to have some realistic expectations wherever you go.
Great. And let me dive a little bit more into that. So, you said, so it sounds like you didn't really necessarily have to tone it down, but you had to kind of change your, aggressive or, the approach that you would normally take. It sounds like you learned to alter that or change it a little bit, but you sound really confident. That's always helpful in sales. And I guess, so we're talking about, like how that approach can be taken as from a woman's standpoint, or how it can be taken as a woman. But let's talk about the three different, potential people that you're working with. So it could be employees, or say leadership at the company that you're at, or the buyers on the other end. Are you saying that the challenge is with all of them, or is it stronger with, say, one of those three categories?
Well, I think, I think dealing with superiors or lateral employees I think that's where, or I guess employees in general, I think that's where the biggest challenge is. You do have to manipulate yourself in front of a buyer in order to gain, their confidence or their interest in you and your line. So I don't think that's so much of a challenge from buyer to seller standpoint. I think it's much more internal at the corporate level. And I've worked for some great people, and I've worked for some not so great people. And I've come to a point where I don't tolerate not so great people anymore, and I have the luxury of not having to work for them. Early on in my career, it was all about the brand. I chased the brand, and then it was all about the money. And now it's all about the people. And if you can find a company that has awesome people with an awesome product, you've hit the lottery with that. So if I could make that recommendation, save yourself some heartache and some some sweat, and go for that company that has the quality people, because life is just too short to really waste it on not so nice people.
That's a nice way to put it. So work with great people, and there you go. I mean, those are choices that people can make.
Right, because I've worked for some iconic brands. All Clad and Calphalon are the top of the game in the gourmet cookware industry, and it's at the end of the day they have the most beautiful cookware in the world. But are you working in an environment that is healthy for you? And so part of my maturing process as I got older, I realized that it's not all about the brand. It's not all about the company. It really is what you can accomplish with the people that you're, working with. And you spend more time with work people than you do with, your family. So you better enjoy yourself while you're out there.
100% agree. From everything from college choice to degree to, your decision to be an entrepreneur or go work for somebody, or, whatever categories you get into. And the great thing about sales is you get to meet a lot of people and you get to travel. So there's so many, benefits. Yeah. There's the pressures on your back, you have to it's all results oriented. What are some mistakes, especially for young professionals listening, some mistakes and learnings that you have made along the way that you wish you knew when you were first getting started?
Again, chasing that brand or chasing that unknown. And I can give you this example back in the 90s. So early on in my career, I had goals for myself. I wanted to be a president of a housewares company by the time I was 50. I wanted to be a VP by the time I was 40. And, down. And so I had arrived at a level where I'm due to be a national sales manager, by golly. And I received an offer from Anchor Hocking and as well as Meyer Cookware. And this is coming from Creuset and Calphalon, were the two previous companies that I worked for. So the next progression in the cookware industry would be, let's go work for Meyer Cookware. Anchor Hocking obviously is an opening price point, glass, commodity, and a very different business model, but they offered me the opportunity to manage Walmart. And again, back in the 90s, Walmart, I think we had just switched from fax orders to actual email. But they still had item change form. Their famous Form 33s were still in triplicate legal, size paper that you had to submit. So we were just on that verge of going over 2,000 stores at that time. So the regret, I don't want to say regret because I really don't have any, but it would have been easier for my career to follow and stay in the same vein as gourmet cookware. I made the choice to go with Anchor Hocking to manage Walmart because I knew that if I wanted to be, a president of a housewares company, I probably need diversity outside of specialty retailers and high-end department stores. And so, working with a mass merchant was going to offer me, well-roundedness. I look back now, I probably should have stayed in the same vein. And then eventually I would have found the mastering of a different channel of distribution, AKA, mass or drug or whatever it be. I don't. So I would advise people today to kind of stay with a mastery of a consumer products vein. I'm very blessed to where I am today because I have sold a whole level of products that fall into different channels within the department store or retailer, as well as channels of distribution. So there's only a handful of retailers that I have yet to cross the threshold on. So I love that variety where I can call on a Home Depot as easily as I can call on a Walgreens, as I can a Target, as I can a Williams-Sonoma. But I would prefer young people become masters of said electric or cookware or tabletop. I think that you would probably wind up being more successful, more marketable, having that level of expertise. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. So you had a lot of, you were really focused, it sounds like, because you're writing your goals and, when I'm 40, I want to do this. When I'm 50, I want to, be president of a company. And so I guess it is good that you went out and got those other skills, but just looking back, you think it might be more valuable to just really become an expert, which in today's world and economy is true for like almost every category, actually. Those are the folks that are kind of making the biggest waves and can call their own shots and are adding the most value because because a lot of everything else can be automated or outsourced. But true expertise are difficult to come by and they take a lot of time and they're not easily replicable. So that's great feedback.
Yeah, and I kind of jumped around within an industry, so I can still say that I'm an industry expert. But honestly, I would definitely recommend somebody stay in pharmaceuticals or somebody stay in medical supplies, or somebody even within the housewares industry, try and stay within a specific vein. But having said that, I'm a happy camper where I am. And, I've been at the vice president level for the last 10, 12 years. I do have, 3 teenage boys. And so, which that wasn't part of my plans originally. I was never going to get married and I was never going to have kids. But by golly, I was going to be that president of a housewares company by the time I was 50. So I've had to, modify my goals in order to, have that work-life balance, which is very important. Again, early on, I was all about work, rise, climb that ladder. And I realized, again, that, life is too short and that you really need to enjoy that journey as opposed to just that end game. So I don't want to say I've softened. I'd like to say that I'm much wiser, in my age today. And I'm very, very happy with, being able to attend marching band concerts or hockey games or whatever it be, and truly live in that moment and not be worrying about a presentation that I have to put together for Pet Supplies Plus, so.
Yeah. Look at the end of it, when our lives are about to end, I think the family component is going to be the area we wish we spend more time on. So that's,
there's no doubt. Yeah. And I'll just share this with you and you can have it be on the podcast or not. But my husband, who's, 52, had a heart attack last week. And I was just finishing up my appointment in Detroit with Pet Supplies Plus when my youngest son texted me and said, "Hey, has Dad told you what's going on?" And I'm like, "No." And so there went the back and forth and exchange and talking to my husband and the chest pains. And my youngest son was, smart enough. He gave him an aspirin, dragged him into the car because, of course, John didn't want to go because he's 52 and doesn't want to, blow the $200 on the copay, ER copay. And but my son took him to the ER as I was, racing back from Detroit. And sure enough, it was a heart attack. 24 hours later, he had a cardiac cath, and they put a stent in, and it was 99% blocked, one of the arteries. And it was a pretty big wake-up call. Like, you really could have been, gone. So, again, to your point about focusing on the family, is 100%, because this is what matters. Everything else outside of it. So it was great. My middle child is a senior, and he's playing ice hockey, varsity ice hockey, and so we literally went from the hospital on Friday to the rink, and people were, of course, just astounded that oh my God, you just had a heart attack 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And it's like, this is what's important. Yes, should I, go home and rest? I could. Wasn't not required. I'm here, supporting my child and being with my family. So it definitely is a wake up call. Not that that I wasn't that we were all about family to begin with, but it was like, okay, now we're really about family.
It's a big reminder. So,
yeah,
wow, and thanks for sharing that personal story, and glad that he's doing better. And, everything's fragile, just unfortunately and sadly is, what happened with Kobe Bryant and the plane crash. I'm a huge,
oh my God, that was so devastating. And again, this can just be between you and I, but the other family. So yeah, Kobe and his daughter are dead, but it was a husband and wife. And then Kobe's, daughter's best friend, who were killed, and they left behind a daughter who's a junior in high school. And here this poor child is without parents and a sibling. I wanted to throw myself off a cliff. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Coming home to an empty house?
It's tough. Yep.
Oh my God.
And down here, I know you're in Cleveland. By the way, I have my family was all born and raised in Cleveland. My parents so
stop it.
I'm not kidding you. So I have all kind of extended family there. But anyways, out here in LA, Kobe is just completely, everybody loves Kobe because he really did a lot of things in the community. By the way, he was really active. But anyways, no, I'm definitely going to leave this in the podcast because it's. I think people will find it interesting, and it's timely. It's what happened, and people can just kind of reevaluate their lives.
And hopefully these kids. So my kids are Generation Z, and just like your oldest daughter. My oldest is actually a junior at Cleveland State, and who's also in marketing. And I actually look at him, and he's got everything going for him. He's athletic. He's good looking. He's a fourth generation salesman. And I tell him, I'm like, you're going to have such an easier time being successful in sales, doing whatever, unlike me. And so I'm really excited. I never look at it as, like, damn, I wish I was that. I am just super jazzed for my children entering into the workplace because they're just going to have this phenomenal ride. And I think that they're smarter than I was, back at their age, where they are a little bit more well-rounded when it comes to balance between, life and work. My kids have all worked through high school and through college, and so it's and I think that they see us now with a good work-life balance. So hopefully they'll have a leg up when it comes to that, making sure to have that family time or that downtime or that self-care time, and not, killing yourself, for the man.
Oh man. Hopefully I'm not the man, being a business owner, but I know what you're saying.
Right. Don't be the man.
Don't be the man. But you know what? It's like I tell kids, and I'm speaking at like a middle school, high school, or a middle school, just as like a career day. But it's like, everybody should look at entrepreneurship now. And I think it's easier for kids to be entrepreneurs than it ever has been. But,
yeah, and they offer, come on, there were not entrepreneurial classes, let alone degrees offered back when I was in college. It was your basic business admin and marketing. And today there's a plethora of degrees, including entrepreneurship, which is phenomenal. To be, because we used to think that you had to have it within you, right? You had to be that self-starter that want to do it. And which is great if you've got it, but having these degrees nowadays just fine tunes these kids into business management. It allows for them, again, to work with or without people, They can create these great cultures now, and call the shots.
Yep.
Do you want to take Wednesdays off? Take the Wednesday off. Go for it. Do you want to have a 4-day work week? Go for it. So I agree with you 100%. I think it's dynamite. And especially in this day and age where the, traditional roles in consumer product companies may not be there. And it's so easy to develop a brand and get brands, products in front of consumers. I mean, the internet is just like amazing. What used to take us 15 years to build a quote unquote brand, you can do it in 9, 12 months, just with the power of social media. So I couldn't agree with you more on that, having the young kids get into entrepreneurials.
Yep. So there's so many options and kind of, I know that you believe in transparency and honest feedback, and you're really direct, and I can tell that, and which is always really good in sales. And then you've had to rein in 3 teenage boys, which is another challenge in and of itself. But for women, and just staying on theme for how women should approach feedback. Like, how can you give some examples of how that's helped you, but also how it's backfired, as far as giving direct feedback, and then maybe, what, young professional women can learn from that?
So direct feedback or constructive criticism is the political correct way. And I have no problem sharing that, because I phrase it in a positive way. And I phrase it and I speak it in a way that I would like to be spoken to. And I grew up in the ranks of men, and where I was yelled at like a drill sergeant. And you don't want to call it hazing, but it was somewhat of that cutthroat environment. And what I learned over the years is that's really not appropriate behavior. And that old boys club, you can keep your nasty behavior over there. And I've learned to you share constructive criticism in a way where it's more uplifting and empowering to people. And it's been great. I do hire a lot of women, not to have reverse sexism, but I had this selling team at Igloo. That was amazing. I had 3 women plus myself, and we called ourselves the Wonder Women. And really, it was just phenomenal. And there were 3 very different personalities, including myself, and it was just such a great dynamic. I'm not one to beat around the bush, and I think that allows for people to be at ease, because it's not like I'm over here squirreling away, taking notes, keeping score, and then I'm going to come at you, a month later, and, you're going to get a tongue wagging, finger wagging. It's definitely everything's on the table, and, nothing is barred. So, it can be 2 ways. It doesn't have to be just that one way. And so I believe that immediate feedback allows for an easier breathing environment. Does that make sense to you? I'm not quite sure if I was able to clearly articulate that.
Well, it does. It does. I think the next, how about if we ask it this way, and this is kind of like to pull it all together. So like, what are 3, let's say we can put a number on it. What are 3 important things that, new female sales professionals need to do, maybe in their habits, in their personal growth, or in their career to succeed? So not just tying the last question, but just everything about like what you've learned. And if you're able to kind of prioritize what you feel might be the 3 most important things, that would help young ladies as they're kind of getting started in their sales careers.
Sure. And it could apply to men as well. I mean, I don't want to, not share the same information I'd give to my children, my boys, as I would a young woman. most importantly is be true to yourself. Don't ever sell yourself short. There's a line out there that says, know your worth and don't offer discounts on it. And I think that I sold myself short, one too many times. And thankfully I've learned. So I think first and foremost, being true to yourself is, and being honest with yourself is first and foremost. And then, the honesty, would be number two, that we're all human. And if you make a mistake, you got to own up to it. Nothing is more detracting to an office environment where either somebody steals your idea or somebody throws you under the bus for having done something. And I think that we need a little higher level or injection of honesty in a workplace, and that everybody takes responsibility for what they do or don't do. So that would be the second one. And the third one is really to have fun. And if you're in a place where you're not having fun, you need to find another place. Because we circle back around to, life is too short to waste your time in a not so healthy environment. So that should be a red flag. If you're not having fun at work, you need to get out. That old adage of, work should be fun, because it is, life is just much too short.
Totally agree. Totally. And that's why you want to be working with great people. But, to summarize, don't sell yourself short, own up to your own mistakes, be honest, and then have fun. And make sure you're enjoying where you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my dad, when my dad sent me to college, I had, three things. Three goals. One was meet as many people as I could, because he knew that it was about connections and making connections later in life, which is, it's so great that it's like materialized into something like a LinkedIn or a Facebook. Which is totally true, because you can always learn something from anyone that you meet. The second one was to have fun, and the third one was to graduate. And he gave it to me in that order for a reason. And it's networking. Make sure you have some social life, and please, at the end of the day, graduate.
That's great advice. It really is, actually. And it's funny because I just telling my daughter graduated, and she had like a 3.5, and she had jobs, and she was doing stuff. And I encourage her to do those things, because it's like, if you already have a 3.5, I don't think an employer is going to say, well, why didn't you get a 3.75? Like, at that point, go out and make sure you experience all these other things. Right. And, and really at the end of the day, what we want to see, or as I want to see as an employer, I want to see that, you finished what you started. So I think it's great that you made the honor roll. I think it's great that you went to this, blah, blah, blah school. But at the end of the day, you know what, having a degree from, Cleveland State, and you have a 3.0, but you graduated and you learned, and, you're a well-balanced person. That's really what is important to me as an employer. Yep. And so, that's great. Good advice. And people get caught up, I think, just like you were talking about earlier, too much in grades, or even in their career too much,
Well, yeah, I'm with you with the college thing. River is at Cleveland State, my oldest, and then, Brody is a senior, and he's got a couple Ivy Leagues that he applied to, and then, he's got Ohio State University and everything in between. And I have too many fellow parents who have gotten caught up in the upper end colleges that feel like that's a must. And what I've told all three of my children is, we'll pay for any state school that you want. Anything else beyond that, you're going to have to get in scholarship. But at the end of the day, you're walking out of college with little or no debt, period, the end, because there are so many people in front of you that have assumed this ginormous college debt and are in careers where they basically will never be able to pay them off. So I think having that realistic expectation, that forth for my kids, and that can be applied into the workplace as well. You got to have realistic expectations here in life. And so, it's interesting how so many people get caught up like, am I going to go work for this Fortune 500 company? Or should I maybe start with, work for a small startup? And it's the same thing. Should I go to Cornell, or can I get, be just as successful at Cleveland State University?
Yep.
So that needs to be taken into, consideration.
Yeah, and that debt eliminates a lot of flexibility. So, when kids are young and they get out of school and they, they're testing out jobs, and that now they're a little less flexible because they have all this debt load and required payments.
So it really is. It's terrifying. I mean, they'll never be able to own a home, or it will take them a long time. And I just don't think that they saw or completely understood what that debt really is. And what a $50,000 a year school does. Again, it's just, I'll chalk it up to bad parenting, but don't put that in there.
Well, it's in there. That's funny. But Stacey, what is, I guess quickly, interesting to learn maybe a habit, a ritual, or a practice, that you've learned or done that has made you a better person, either at work or at home. It could be like a morning routine or just something that you've learned from your experience, that has become a daily or a weekly thing that's helped you.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to say that self-care, which is, a big trend buzzword thing now, I really, truly do believe in that. And I do have a meditation practice. I do yoga. I'll do stretching and or rowing. And I think that having this meditation, mindfulness, self-care practice, 100% has made me a better person. And it really, I think mindfulness grows out of self-care, where I look at that as what I project, out onto humanity, while, because I'm taking care of myself, I'm bettering myself, I'm always striving to be a better version of today's self. I do a lot of reading. Of course, it's all digital now. I always say I read the paper. And then my mom will say, hey, did you see that article in the Cleveland Plain Dealer? And I'm like, oh, man, we don't have the print paper anymore. So, no. Or she'll clip out an article for me, and whereas I very easily could have just looked it up online. But I do read a lot of current affairs. And again, I feel that keeps me connected with I guess my community, my thing. So taking care of myself, broadening my mind, whether it's through self-help books or reading newspapers, reading books, and then just making sure I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah. And we talked about health earlier, and I guess, but self-care sounds a lot better than, me saying, hey, honey, I'm going surfing. But I guess I can turn my surfing into, because it really is like, that's my self-care.
It really is. It really is. Because, it allows you to decompress. Yeah. It allows you to get some, sunshine and some salt water, right? Yeah. And some physical exercise. And so it is. So even though, it's a buzzword today, it really does make a difference for sure. Well,
I like that. So you got self-care, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, and, kind of with that, do you have, a book or an article that you'd suggest the audience to read?
So there's one on my desk right now, and I know you told me not to drop the F-bomb, but it's the subtle art of giving a fuck.
I've read it actually. Oh, great. What am I going to do if my kids listen to this?
So that's a good one. And then no assholes allowed. That's another one that's a few years old.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
But it's that type of, I resonate with the reality, let's be real people here. And so, I mean, there's Tony Robbins is a great speaker, motivational speaker, none of those guys, can hurt. But I seem to gravitate towards the, tell it like it is types of book.
Well, I mean, that's probably why you've been successful. So, you get to the point, and honestly, in sales, that's like the most important thing. You get to the point and you're direct. And then probably with being direct, you probably gain people's trust, and like you said, you talked about honesty earlier. So
absolutely. You are 100% right. Is, what you see is what you get. And again, it removes that air of, I'm not sure who this person is. Should I trust them? Are they out to get me? And that's just all taken away when, you tell it like it is. Now, I will tell you that sometimes telling it like it is has gotten me into trouble. Yeah. So, it comes with it. But, at the end of the day, I believe that it's all part of the process. And, if I get into trouble, there's probably a learning lesson that needed to happen there. So, you just have to trust that you're doing the right thing. By doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You can never really get into that much of trouble when your motivation is what's the next right thing.
And you got to take your shots in life. So sometimes they're not always going to fall, but you got to take your shots. And listen,
true.
It's been a great episode here. Great catching up with you.
Is an hour already gone by? Are we really up? Because I feel like we've only been talking.
That's because it's just a natural conversation. So that's what I love about the Page One podcast. And I get a chance to meet people like you, but no, I love your personality and it comes through, and I guess with that, how can listeners find you? Where can is it good to connect on LinkedIn, or what's a place that listeners might be able to find you on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. I do believe I am searchable. Stacey Reid, Stacey Reid. I know it's always a challenge when you've got extra vowels in your names or not arranged where most people like them to be. So, Stacey Reid on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, but I think probably it's best for your peeps to stick on the business side. But again, I'm more than happy. If you want to provide my personal email, that's fine too. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
Cool.
Whether you're, late in your career, just starting out, thinking about, what you want to do. Most likely I've been there, done that. So I'd be happy to share.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, Stacey. And just want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Page One podcast sponsored by Retail Band. And quick reminder, I'm offering a free evaluation of your online sales strategy. We can look at your digital strategy on Amazon, Home Depot, and Wayfair. We can review your products, look at your selling tools that you're using, and also utilize our selling tools to understand your products. We'll present the findings directly to you, look at opportunities with influencer marketing. And if you're interested, so find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at luke@retailband.com. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Page One podcast. I appreciate everybody that listens, appreciate your comments, suggestions, and especially your reviews. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Page One podcast with Luke Peters. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our other segments. Also, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to learn more about our commerce? Check out www.retailband.com to get more great tips and tricks on how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers.